The Quest is a series of TV episodes in that Dead and Buried provided the Raptor storyline, but it was also like that last 15 minutes of a 24 season that introduces the next one, and this one finishes that off.
And that's what bugged me, is Dead and Buried was told a story and a half. It told the Raptor Elamaria story, and it told the first half of the Ungale story, and it ended in the middle of that story.
That's interesting to say, because I also feel like Unwelcome Guests and the first half of Dead and Buried was the Elamaria story. Like, it feels like they're getting segmented up weird a little bit in that way.
Yeah. Why does it feel that way? Is it that this thing was written before, like the general arc was written before, like the macro arc, that the macro arc was written before, and it's just kind of split at weird parts?
I mean, I like match it up with content. Like Unwelcome Guest was to match it up with Slayer.
Okay.
I think it's that. I think it's also like, this is going to sound really bad when I say it. So if the JMods responsible for this quest are listening, I mean this with all the love in the world. It feels like cheap drama to just end on a cliffhanger.
Soap opera.
Like it's like Tanis made the old Batman comparison, where like the Adam West Batman show they would always air 2-part episodes. So there'd be a half-hour episode, the next week would be the other half of the episode, and the first half would always end with Batman in an inescapable death trap, and you got to tune in next week to see how he gets out of it.
Or like the Pokemon case of always of having Team Rocket always trying to catch the Pikachu, right?
Right, exactly. It's how are they going to get out of this one?
Makes sense.
And I honestly think this is just the path they chose to go with this, because it's been very clear in that last live stream we got from Mod Jack that the point of this is to start thinking of RuneScape in the sense of seasons.
Yeah, like this is to sell. Like that's the reason we don't get the boss battle at the end, is like they put in another team, an entire update into that, and this is to lead up to that.
Right, in that back in a different time, you would have had pretty much everything from after Murder on the Border until now in one quest.
Sure, and I think
story-wise,
they might be short, but I think there's something to be said about like
it makes it more accessible
projects instead of
for
one.
people.
Like 3 different teams got to have their voice on this and put bespoke mechanics into it and learn between quests and stuff like that. There's something to be said about that. And also, like, they're building quests into bosses. I think 10 years ago, it'd be insane if we had, like, quests and bosses, like, connect. Virago was the loosest connection. We had, like, stuff like Araxor and Mazcav's off doing its own thing in some corner of the universe. And I think there's something to be said about all the chapters of the story aren't just quests.
Yeah, and as, like, the season thing is cool, and the overarching fort thing is cool. I think what feels weird is just those points where they broke up the story, because like Zardones was saying, Dead and Buried was a story and a half. Well, it should have just been a story, tacked the last 15 minutes onto this one and tell the story of Ungale. Right? Like, it feels just a little
2 times
off
in the crypt.
Set. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think if Dead and Buried had ended with the dream of Zemo, and then we hadn't gone into the crypt to find, like, we'd done that part at the start of Ancient Awakenings, I feel like that would have been paced a little better. Maybe that would have made Dead and Buried too short. I don't know.
Being attached to Unwelcome Guests. I don't know.
Yeah, we just keep shifting the problem backwards.
Yeah. And also remember, I think Mod Jack said somewhere that it was him specifically who asked for the Raptor reveal and storyline in the last quest.
Right, because they wanted to use the Queen more in this Misthalin story.
And he said there's following through on that and seeing it, there's some question if that was the right decision. And, if you go back and you answer that question now and you take the alternate path here, I think you have a much more linear and approach that makes more sense than we see with this.